Hey everyone, Todd from Sideshow Effects once again, and in this video I'm going to go over the installation process of our Davinci Color Panel for Mac systems. Now once you've downloaded our pack, you might want to, we have a little folder here called Start Here, and this introduces you to our QuickStart guide, which goes over the same processes I'm going to show you in this video. In addition, in the pack there is a comprehensive guide, and this is a even more detailed PDF. We cover every single parameter individually of how it would be presented and programmed. So we'll get to programming in a minute, but first of all we have a couple things that we need to install, and the first is our keyboard shortcuts. So to install those keyboard shortcuts, we'll go into Davinci itself, and we will go to the keyboard customization, and we're going to go to the top ellipse here and we'll select import preset. You will navigate to the folder that you downloaded from Sideshow Effects and navigate to the key command folder, and inside is this text folder, and this is what you would import into Davinci. I already have it loaded here, so I'm not going to do it on this step. I'll just close this out. The next step is this pack works in conjunction with the amazing software program Keyboard Maestro, which makes a lot of this stuff work. So you will need to have your own licensed copy of Keyboard Maestro, and if you don't have one, you can head over to keyboardmaestro.com and you can download the free trial. But for long-term use, of course, you're going to have to purchase this. And we have a discount code in the PDF itself that will get you 20% off the cost of Keyboard Maestro. So you launch Keyboard Maestro, and what you will need to do is then go to File, Import, and you're going to import to Macro Library. And this is a library file that we've created. It's inside of your downloaded folder once again, and under the KM macro folder. And this is it here, Sideshow Effects Color Panel Macros. And it's a KM library file. So you would select that to import that. I'm not going to select it because I already have it. And it will show up in the macro library here. And you may need to double click this to launch it into the Keyboard Maestro editor. And once you do, it shows up here under Sideshow Effects Color Panel, and you may find that when you launch it into the Maestro editor that Enable Macro Group is turned off. So it's not going to work until you select this checkbox, and once you do, it's now enabled. The only other thing to do here in Keyboard Maestro is double check and make sure that the Keyboard Maestro engine is running. And you do that by going to the File menu in Keyboard Maestro and go down here. And if it's running, it will say Quit Engine. In this case, it isn't running, so I will start the engine by saying Launch Engine. And now it's running. See, now when we go to File, it shows Quit Engine, which indicates that it is working. Now the next thing to do is we're going to launch Loupedeck itself, and we're going to import the Loupedeck profile that we've created. So you click on the main profile, go to Import Profile, and you would navigate to, once again, the folder you downloaded from, the pack you downloaded from Sideshow Effects, and in the Loupedeck Profile folder is the color panel for Davinci Resolve Mac version. You would select that profile, and it would import, and it will come up with the dialog box asking you what application you want to associate with this profile with. Obviously it's Davinci Resolve, and you can either leave the name or you can change it to whatever you like. And then we would say, okay, now I've already got it loaded here, so I'm not going to do a second installation of this. Once installed, it will appear like this. Now once this is imported, one of the other things you need to do is go up here to the top right, and we're going to, on this drop down, we're going to go to Device Settings, and we're going to go into Device Configuration and make sure that we have MIDI on. You may find it's off by default. Turn it on and say Done. And then one other thing, just to double check, you make sure that you have MIDI here, and in the In the settings, make sure that MIDI is viewed. You don't want to hide the plugin, you want to make sure that it is active. And so once that's done, the profile is ready to be programmed. Now you need to program it for your own specific workstation because everybody's workstation is always a little bit different, and what we're going to be doing is recording XY coordinates of your mouse position for all the different color parameters in Davinci. Once you start getting into the swing of it, it can go very quickly, but I'm going to be very detailed so that there is minimal confusion as to what you need to do and where you need to place your mouse.
Now I'll be demonstrating the programming on my Loupedeck CT device. This color panel pack works on the live device as well. The only difference is, of course, you don't get the shuttle wheel and you don't have the square keys. And there is a slight difference in how the numbering works on the live device. On the CT, it goes from 1 to 8. On the live device, it has a main key, and then it goes from 1 to 7. So in the programming of this, I indicate the use of the 7 and 8 keys for moving forwards and backwards. On the live device, it's the 6 and 7 key. And the key binding button on the CT I refer to as key binding round button 6 is actually the round button 5 on the live device.
So the first thing you want to do, you'll see on our main page we have an activate button on the top right here. So let's go into Davinci, and with Davinci open we'll press activate, and you'll see you get a quick little overlay indicating that the Sideshow Effects panel has been activated. This now makes the Loupedeck Color Panel live for us. If ever you find that the buttons aren't responding, that is the first place you go to do it as a troubleshoot. Hit the activate button, make sure that the panel is active. Now before we can record any mouse positions, what you'll need to do, the first step is go to your workspace and you want to reset the UI layout. This will just reset everything into a standardized setup for you to work with. What we want to do is make sure that everything below our timeline here is going to stay in the same position. If it moves after we have programmed our mouse position, obviously our mouse position is going to be off. So you need to make sure that however you are planning on working is going to stay the same. Now some things that will change the layout of your Davinci interface can be, let's say you go into, we'll go into Davinci Resolve, go into project settings, and you'll see that we can enable or disable Dolby Vision, HDR10 Plus, and HDR Vivid. Now if you see over here on the left hand side here, these panes here, you see I've got Dolby Vision selected because I'm going to demonstrate how to program Dolby Vision. But I don't have HDR10 Plus and Vivid. Now when I turn these on, and then when I'm trying to get this out of the way here, when I say save, and those will come on, and these headings here will all shift down. So take a look at that. When I say save, you see they shifted down. They've been added and they shifted this bank down. So if I had already programmed my curves header over here where it originally was, and then I go to press curves, it's going to press in this location and it's not there anymore, it's down here. So I'm saying this just to have you plan ahead of time how you like to work. If you never work with these, let's take them out. Just remove those, say save again, and we'll work with it in this position. I'll leave Dolby Vision on. If you don't work with Dolby Vision, you can have that off, however you choose to work. Now, if you decide that in a later project you want to use one of these extended modes, you just need to reprogram this set here. Not a big deal, and you'll see in a minute how quick it is to do this. So this is the setup we're going to go with. This is the setup we're going to start programming with. Now in terms of programming, for those of you who are really familiar with Davinci and really familiar with Loupedeck devices, and you just want the very, very short, quick version of what I'm going to be demonstrating here, here it is.
So you press number 6 on the Loupedeck device, navigate to the workspace you want to work in, for example, Primaries. Position your mouse over the parameter that you want to target, in this case temperature. On your Loupedeck device, press the temperature key. You will hear a tone. That position has now been recorded. Now when you go back out to the main page of our color panel and you go into the Primaries workspace and you press the temperature key, you can now use the horizontal dial, or if you have the CT device, the shuttle wheel set to the horizontal section, and rotate that, and your temperature will now raise up or down depending on the direction you turn the dial. It's just positioning your mouse over the correct parameter and pressing the correct parameter in the keybind section of our color panel on your device. You don't have to program everything in Davinci. You can just program the ones you want to use. Let's say, for example, you never use the log controls. You don't need to program them. You only need to program what you want to use. If you find at a later date that you start using log and you want to program those, hop into keybind, position your mouse over all the parameters, keybind them, you're done. And you never have to do it again. These settings will always be saved. So that's the real quick and short version of what it is we're doing here with the programming. It goes by very quickly once you get into the rhythm of it. Now if you want to see a more in-depth version, the rest of the video is going to go through every single parameter, just in case there's confusion as to where you need to place your mouse and what parameter in our pack is associated with the parameter in Davinci itself. You can almost use the rest of the video as a reference guide. So we're going to start the process of the programming for this particular layout. There is a keybind key at the top here, or you can just press the round 6 button, and that is dedicated to keybind. So let's go to 6, and it presents us with this initial workspace. We're going to start to program the headers here. So we'll start selecting headers, and you'll see that these icons with the red triangle indicate that they are keybind icons. In other words, these are the ones we are going to do to program the software. If I switch over to our main, you'll see the primary color wheels has no red triangle. This is the active function that you would use during normal work. You only use, go back to keybind here, go back into header, you only use the keybind area for this step of setting them up. Once they're set up, you never need to do this again unless you change your layout. So for the first example, we're going to program Primaries wheel, and that's this icon over here. So I'm going to position my mouse exactly where the primary color wheels are, and I'm going to press the Primaries wheel button on the Loupedeck device. And you hear a little tone that indicates that it has recorded that mouse position. Now the next one is the primary color wheels themselves. We move our mouse to this position, select that, that has been recorded. Log is next, move to the log icon, and HDR is back over here. RGB Mixer, curves, color warper, qualifier, the window, tracker, magic mask. Now if you don't have magic mask, it's probably because you have the free version of the software. This is running the studio version at the moment. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. Move to the next page and we're going to do blur, key, sizing. I skipped over Dolby Vision, so I'll go back over here and where Dolby Vision is, and I'll hit that one. So now our headers are all programmed, and I'll demonstrate this in a second, but I want to go to the first set of the primary color wheels before I do a demonstration of this. So I can select the 6 again, go back to the main page of our key binding, go into primary color, and now we're in our first layout of our primaries. So make sure that we're not in HDR or something like that. We're going to make sure that we got the primaries pane open here.
And the first heading is our temperature control. So we're going to place our mouse over top of the text of the parameter, and I will hit the temperature key. Now, this might be a good time to just demonstrate how this actually is working. So on the Loupedeck device, let's go back to our main by pressing 1. And I'm going to go into primary color, and you can see we now have our color controls all available to us here. And let's say I'm starting a color session. I want to start adjusting the color temperature of this particular shot. I can hit the temperature, and you see our mouse immediately moves to the temperature parameter. And this dial on the bottom right is our horizontal dial, and that allows us to change the value. And one thing I'll do, I'll turn on the scopes here so you can see the changes a little more clearly. And certainly turning on the keyframes or the scopes here doesn't change any positioning here, so you're fine to switch that around as you like. So once again, temperatures, I moved the mouse off that area, so moving our dial isn't going to have any effect until I press temperature again. That swings us back over there, and now I can adjust our temperature. So now that we've seen how that works, let's move back to key binding with the 6th key, go into Primaries color, and we'll continue with the rest of these parameters. For tint, move over the text of tint, hit tint. Contrast, pivot, mid detail, color boost, shadows, highlights, saturation, hue, and Luma Mix. And we can also do the master reset here. Now there's many more controls here that we have available that we can also program. We can swipe the screen, the touch screen, from right to left. That will get us to the next page. But pressing the 7 and 8 keys also navigates us forward and backwards through the touch pages. So pressing 8 brings us to the second page of this workspace. And now you see along the top we have lift, gamma, gain, and the offset. Now where we position the mouse for this is directly in the center of our color wheel for lift, and we can select the lift wheel. Gamma, gain, and offset. And now we're going to go down to the master controls. So we'll go down to lift here, place it somewhere in the center, gamma, gain, and offset. And the last 3 on this page are the red, green, blue offset controls. And so we will place it just beneath there, offset red, offset green, offset blue. And let's complete the primaries by going to the next page, and we'll quickly go through these. So we have lift, lift red, lift green, lift blue, gamma, gamma red, gamma green, gamma blue. And if I make a mistake, if I have my mouse over here and I hit the gain, I go, oh, that was in the wrong place. Just reposition it, do it again. Red, green, blue. All right, and once more on the 8 page brings us back to the first page of this workspace. So we're done with primary colors. And you want to test it, we can go back to our main, go into primary colors, and now we can test any of these functions here. So let's move our mouse off. Let's select hue, for example, and now we can adjust our hue. Let's go to saturation, just by pressing saturation, and go into my shadows. Now I can lift my shadows, increase the contrast, And you want to get into more of the details of the color channels, press the 8 key to go to the next page here. Let's try one of the color wheels. Let's go to the gamma color wheel. And by pressing this, and I can use two hands because we have a vertical control at the same on the other side, and now I can move in diagonals. And I can adjust that wheel however I like, using the vertical and the horizontal at the same time. The vertical is obviously only available for the color wheels. The other color parameters only need the use of the horizontal dial wheel on the bottom right here. And we can go to our gamma control. That's our gamma master, and we can go, let's go to the next page and adjust the green of the gamma itself and the red of the gain, for example. So you can see those are all fully working now. I'm just going to reset my node here and go back into key binding, and we can continue on key binding our log features. Go into log, and we want to make sure we switch over to the log workspace. So we'll click on over here. Now we have the log pane is active, and we will go to our temperature control, tint, contrast, pivot, downward range, upward range, mid details down here on the bottom, color boost, shadows, highlights, saturation, and hue. Pressing 8 takes us to the next page. We're going to do the color wheels, so we're going to do shadow, midtone, highlights, offset, shadow master, midtone, highlights, offset, offset red, offset green, offset blue, and our master reset. Next page, we're going to go to red shadow, green shadow, blue shadow. We also have a reset for the individual ones, so we'll go reset for the shadow. Now we're going to do red midtone, green midtone, blue midtone, reset for midtone, red highlights, green highlights, blue highlights, and blue reset. Next page over takes us back to the first page of our log workspace. So now we've got log all programmed, ready to go. Pressing 6, that brings us back to the main keybind. We're going to work in HDR color now. So let's move to the HDR pane. So move to the leftmost navigation arrow. Select that. The rightmost navigation arrow. All right, and here we go to the HDR icon and the zone. Now we're going to start with temperature down here at the bottom, tint, hue, contrast, pivot, mid detail, and black offset. And we can do the reset all up here. And let's select 8 to go to the next page. We're going to do the wheels. Now the thing to keep in mind here, there are 7 wheels that are actually available in the HDR color pane. But only 4 are ever shown at any one time. So what we're actually programming here is we aren't programming for the black, dark, and shadow, for example, for the first 3. We are programming for wheel number 1, wheel number 2, wheel number 3, so that whatever one you have loaded here will still be controlled by our Loupedeck device. And you'll see global always remains here, it's never changed. So it doesn't matter which one of these are actually present at any time while we're programming. If I select and program black, and then while I'm working I've got shadow selected, that's what I will be changing the value of when selecting my first color wheel on the Loupedeck device. Okay, so let's position our mouse in the center of the first wheel, second wheel, third wheel, and of course global will always be global. Same thing for the exposure and saturation controls here. So exposure for the first wheel, exposure for the second wheel, third wheel, and exposure for global. And then we can do saturation for the first wheel, for the second wheel, third wheel, and saturation global. Now we move to the third page. We're going to select the zone pane, and we're going to move our mouse over top of the text of each of the zones. And we'll press for zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, 5, 6, and you notice we have a zone 7 here. Well, it allows us to create a new zone, so we can just create a new zone, give it a name, and we will select that one down here. And if you want, you can program the create new zone and put it in there just in case you might need it. We also have to do the minimum range and the fall off. Now, one more page takes us back to the first page of our HDR workspace. We're done with HDR. Let's go back to the main header of keybind. We're going to RGB Mixer. Let's select the RGB Mixer in Davinci. So we'll select the red of the red output, green of the red output, blue of the red output, and the reset of the red. Okay, red of the green output, green of the green output, and blue of the green output, and the reset of the green. Red of the blue output, green of the blue output, and blue of the blue output, and the blue reset. One more page. We get our red to green control, green to blue, blue to red, our reset all at the top, as well as our checkbox, mouse over the checkbox itself for monochrome and for preserve luminance. Now we're done with our RGB Mixer. Back to keybind. We can get into curves now. So let's start with the reset all at the top of the curves here. And start with our custom curve. Mouse over hue versus hue. Hue versus saturation. Hue versus luminance. Luminance versus saturation. Saturation versus saturation, and saturation versus luminance. First page is done. Next page, we have our lock for our individual color channels. Mouse over the lock, and then reset of that parameter. So now we can program our individual channels here. So we're going to do luminance, red, green, and then blue, and then our individual channels here. Mouse over the integer, luminance, didn't quite hit that again, red, green, and blue. Let's go to the next page here, number 8. We're going to work on soft clip. So we do the link of soft clip, the reset, the red, green, and blue. And then we're going to mouse over the integer, low, high, low soft, and high soft. Next page on 8. We're going to switch to any one of these other controls here. We can go to the hue versus hue to bring up our bottom palette. So we're going to mouse over our spline, red, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and magenta. And if we switch over to one of the luminance ones here, luminant versus sat, for example, we can mouse over and choose our black point and our white point. And we have also, if we go back here, we have input hue and hue rotate. This will change depending on what is here, but we'll just select any one of these, and we'll just go over top of the integer itself, because that's how we can control this. And I'll select for the input and the second integer box, the output there. So now we move back to page 1 of our workspace. We are done with our curves. Go back to keybind. Next up is color warper. So we'll select our color warper pane here, and I'm going to mouse over the hue saturation, and then contrast lumen, and then the reset all. And for here, we're going to switch over to the Chroma Luma, just so we can bring in the grid 1 and grid 2, and then we can switch back to our color warper. Now I'm going to go down here to our pull down here, our point pull down, where the downward arrow is, and anywhere in the range you'd like to select, and the auto lock right on the auto lock itself. All right, now we're going to move to the second page, and we're going to do the tools. So mouse over where the select is, draw selection, deep in, pull points, or push points, decrease, invert, and convert, select, select pin, and the last select. And that's that page done. Go to our next page. Go here to the bottom, and if I select any one of these pins, I can make these active now. So for hue, and I can do saturation next, and luma next, and we can do our feather for the hue, feather for the saturation, and we're going to reset hue, reset saturation, and then we can reset the luma. Press 8 again to the next page, and now we're going to switch over to our Chroma Luma, and we'll do the tools here. Mouse over our select, draw selection, our pin, depin, our push, or pull points rather, our push points is here. Increase, decrease, invert selection, convert, select pin, column, select pin row, and select pin all. One more page. We're going to go down here to our auto pin. Auto pin surrounding. And let's select any one of these to make these active. Chroma, Luma, Chroma Feather, Smooth Luma. We can mouse over the link and our axis angle anywhere here because this adjusts our axis angle. And that's it, done. And that's our color warper, is all programmed. Back to keybind, qualifier. Let's go to the qualifier area. We're going to work starting with the qualifier HSL, and we will mouse over that parameter, select it, next one over, so RGB, and then we will select the reset all. Now we'll go to the tools, the picker tools, picker, subtract, add, and invert, and we'll do feather subtract, feather add, and then we see our matte finesse 1 and 2 here. We'll go to 1 and matte finesse 2. Go to the next page. Now we're able to start programming our individual color parameters for the hue, saturation, and luminance. Let's go to center, over the text of center, width, soft, symmetry. Under saturation, go to low, high, low soft, high soft. Go into luminance, we'll go low, high, low soft, high soft. That's that page done. Next page, we're going to switch over to our RGB qualifier. To red, we go red low, red high, red low soft, red high soft, green low, green high, green low soft. Didn't quite hit that one, let me get that. And high soft, blue low, blue high, blue low soft, blue high soft. That's that page done. Now we'll move to the 3D, and we're going to once again hit the box for matte finesse 1, matte finesse 2, and our reset all. We're going to go over top of the text because our text is what will allow us to control. So pre-filter, clean black, clean white, black clip, white clip, blur radius, and in-out ratio. Now if we go to the second matte finesse, we have some more parameters for us. Let's go to the drop down of the morph operation, and we can go to the text of morph radius, denoise, shadow, midtone, highlight, and post filter. And 8 takes us back to the first page of our qualifier. Once again, T6. Now we can start programming the parameters for our power windows. Switch to the power window setting. Let's start with reset all, add linear, add circle, add polygon, add curve, and add gradient. And we'll also program the delete. Second page of the curves. Now you don't need to. You can still mouse over these areas, but it's best if we have a matte selected to bring these up alive. And I'll add a second one here. that brings up the additional parameters so I can switch through them. Actually, maybe a circle isn't the best for this. So let's add a square, and now that gives us most of the controls. So let's go to size, or the text of size, aspect. Let's just go down this way to pan and tilt, and then further down to rotate and opacity. Now we'll jump down to soft 1, which is up here, soft 2, soft 3, soft 4, and we'll select our polygon to get the inside and outside selected. Not necessary because we're only recording XY coordinates in the mouse position, but it just allows us, if they're active, we can just double check them. Next page brings us back to the first page of Power Windows. We're done with Power Windows. Back to Keybind and go to Tracker. Select the Tracker pane. We're going to move here to the Window, Stabilizer, and Effects. And we'll do the Reset All. And we're going to have our transport controls. If we go back to the Tracker window, and we'll select one frame reverse, track reverse, stop tracking, track forward and reverse, and track forward, and track one frame forward. Next page, let's mouse over the checkboxes of these parameters. So we're going to do pan. Make sure we're on there. It's a fairly small checkbox. Tilt, zoom, rotate, 3D. We'll select in the clip, anywhere in that. It's a fairly large box. Frame. We can do the reset all here. Go down to the interactive mode checkbox. Our insert, set point, and delete point. Next page, we're going to go into the Stabilize section, over the checkbox of Bypass Stabilize, and then the large button of Stabilize. Cropping ratio, we'll go over the text of each one of these parameters. You see it moves it. Cropping ratio, smooth, strength, the checkbox of camera lock, and the checkbox of zoom. One more page takes us back to the first page of our tracker. We're done with tracker. Keybind, Magic Mask. Of course, if you don't have the studio version, you can skip this part. So we're going to go into Magic Mask here. So let's, what I think I might do is I'm going to reset this node, let's get rid of those masks. And in here, I'm going to draw a stroke. I'm going to see if it's going to actually, yeah, there's too many colors in here. I do have a clip here that maybe I'll use. I have a mask on this already. Yeah, so on this clip, I have a mask I created earlier on this person here. It's not fully processed. But it has been selected. So and that allows us to have these controls available to us. So first thing we're going to mouse over is our reference frame. And then go to first frame. I'm going to do go to last frame here. So that's the next one up. And then the reset all. And then we do our transport controls. So and track back one, or pause, track forward, track the end, and I drew our track forward reverse. Now we also have, up here we have our object mask, and we have our person mask. So let's mouse over object mask, select that, person mask, select that. Let's go to the second page of our Magic Mask, and we're going to go to our pick or add, pick or subtract, invert the mask, and the mask overlay. We also have our mask settings here. Let's switch to the person mask, and we'll mouse over person and features. And we have a Smart Refine here. We'll select that. And we have faster and better. Faster, better. Next page. We have these controls that we can quickly program. Let's go to radius, and we're going to go over the text of each one of these. Our mode, we'll go to the drop down arrow. Go to iterations. I hit the wrong one there. We'll go to the drop down of shape there. And now we'll go with text of consistency, clean black, denoise, black clip, blur radius, clean white, in out ratio, and white clip. Next page takes us back to the first page. Magic Mask is done. Go back to keybind. And now we're going to go to the second page of our key binding. We can now do Dolby Vision. Let's select Dolby Vision here. So we select the Dolby Vision. And if you have Dolby Vision, you'll need a license for Dolby Vision to actually work here. But I've got a license installed here, so I can demonstrate how these can be programmed. So the first thing we'll do is mouse over our primary trims, our secondary trims, and we'll do the reset all. Now we'll go to our analyze buttons here. We're going to analyze all, analyze selected, analyze blend, and analyze frame. We'll select our, go to the drop down arrow of our target display output and our trim controls. Now also our checkbox, right over the checkbox of enable tone mapping. And we're going to select the mid-tone offset. And we can go over top of the text here of mid-tone offset. 8 key takes us to the next page. We have controls for our various color controls here, and we're going to go over the top of the text of these. So we'll go to lift, gamma, gain, saturation gain, chroma weight, tone detail, mid control bias, and highlight clipping. And next page allows us to go into our secondary trims. So we'll select the secondary trims, we'll hit that, and then we can go to the global link, which is this one here. Make sure the link lights up. Hit global. Now we'll do the saturations. Red, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and magenta. Next page over, we can do the hues. Once again, we can do a hue reset. Let's do the colors. We'll do reds, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and magenta. And our last three controls are going to be our minimum, our maximum, and the average. And there we go. We have our Dolby Vision all done. Back to keybind, second page, we can work on blur. Let's go into the blur workspace. I'll change this back to a primaries here. We're going to focus on this area, our blur workspace. So let's go into our blur and our sharpen and our mist. Now let's reset our radius, our ratio, and our scaling. Let's go to sharpen here so that we can make these active. We'll go over the text of coring softness, of level, and of mix. of course, can do the reset all. And now one page over, we can do our individual colors. So we can do the link of radius, link of ratio, and link of scaling. Now we need to go over the integer box of each one of these. So red radius, green radius, and blue radius, red ratio, green ratio, blue ratio, red scaling, green scaling, and blue scaling. Next page over takes us back to where we were on the first page. We're done with blur. Let's go back to keybind, second page. We'll go into key. We'll move to the key section. We'll first mouse over our matte mask and then our key. We'll do reset all. Go over the text of gain, offset, blur radius, blur HV, our gain, offset, gain qualifier, and gain offset. And that's all we have for the key page. Back to keybind, second page, go into sizing. Let's move to the sizing area. Let's select our edit sizing. We'll mouse over the reset sizing, reset cropping, our reset all. We'll go to our different modes here, which is edit sizing, input sizing, output sizing, node sizing, and reference sizing. Second page, we have our different parameters. Let's go over the text once again. We have control with the text feature here. Go with the text, pan, tilt, rotate, and the analyze button. We'll click the lock of zoom X and Y, and we'll do the text of zoom X, zoom Y, and we'll go down to pitch and yaw, and we'll do the two flips right on the icons themselves. And flip vertical, and we'll go here to the distortion text. Let's go to the next page. We're going to go to our cropping section, the text, left, right, top, bottom, and softness. Next page over, we're going to move to our input sizing, and we'll go over the text of pan, tilt, zoom, rotate, width, height, pitch, yaw, the flip icons, horizontal and vertical, and we'll select the reset, and then we also do the reset all again here. Next page over, we need to have blanking set, so we're going to do the output sizing to enable blanking here. Go to the text of top, right, bottom, left, and the checkbox for smooth. And back to the first page. We're all done with sizing. In fact, we're all done with all the parameters of the color deck. That's everything now fully programmed. You can see you can go through it very quickly, and as we said before, you don't have to do everything all at once. You can do it on a per need basis, and once it's done, you never need to do it again. It's always stored in your system, and when you come back to it, those settings are already there. So make sure you check out some of the links below for some videos we've put together that give you a quick demonstration in the different workspaces of how our color panel for Loupedeck can speed up your color grading process. Thanks for watching. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon.